I'm now speaking to Navras Aafreedi from Kolkata in India. Navras, what's the situation with COVID-19 where you are?
It's very bad. The numbers are increasing very rapidly. We have been under a lockdown for more than a month, which has resulted in 122 million Indians losing their jobs. There are about 40 million migrant workers who are trying to get to their homes without access to public transport. Many of them have started walking on foot, trying to cover distances as long as 1,500 kilometers, 17 kilometers. Some of them have met with accidents. Some of them have perished on the way. They have had nothing to eat. India is, of course, home to the world's largest impoverished population. So pandemic has also become an existential crisis for a large section of the Indian population.
The situation sounds pretty desperate, Navras. And I suppose in desperate situations, some communities are targeted, are blamed for what's happening to everybody. Is that the case in India?
In India, the targets are Muslims who have been seen as easy targets, and they have been blamed for the spread of the pandemic.
And in what way is that being played out in terms of the anti-Muslim feeling? Because we know, obviously, with the BJP, there is a sort of growth of Hindu nationalism in India. Is that having an impact?
It's hard to say, but Muslims do fear that it can become even more dangerous in the future, and might such calls to boycott Muslim businesses and vendors and hawkers might even lead to conditions which may be quite similar to apartheid. So there have been such fears that have been voiced by Muslims on social media. And besides this, there's something very interesting that's happening is that I have come to notice are the pressures of self-preservation among religious minorities. Religious minorities often feel pressurized to display support to Hindu nationalism. It can be seen more so with the teeny tiny Jewish community in India. I'm friends with a number of Indian Jews on Facebook, and this is what I notice in their posts on Facebook, that they seem to be under pressure to come out completely in support of Hindu nationalism for their own self-preservation, which is something which is not peculiar to India. You see this also in Iran. If you interview Iranian Jews, they would only speak well of Iran and would be critical of the state of Israel. So these are pressures of self-preservation. If I play videos of Hindus in Pakistan, which I often do on YouTube, I find Hindus there speaking very well of Pakistani society because they can't do otherwise.
That's very, very interesting. Is that also true of other minority groups in India? I'm thinking of the Jains or the Zoroastrians. Are there any, those very small communities, do they feel pressured also?
Yes, Zoroastrians do. For Jains, there is no pressure because the Hindu community has this tendency to incorporate small religious minorities that often appear to be very similar to the Hindus. So even if the Buddhists and the Jains assert themselves to be separate religious communities, there would still be a large number of Hindus who would refuse to acknowledge them as separate religious communities. And as far as the Indian law is concerned, the Jain and Buddhist and Sikh communities are governed by the Hindu law.
It's very interesting. Is there any sign of any militant Buddhism as exists in Myanmar?
There has been a very strong Buddhist movement in India, but it is not purely a Buddhist movement. There is an overlap of two movements there. The Dalit, it's Dalit Buddhist movement, that is those who were treated as untouchables for centuries. When their leader, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, converted to Buddhism, and following him, hundreds and thousands of his followers embraced Buddhism. That was a time when this movement, Dalit Buddhist movement, came into existence. Dr. Ambedkar was the chairman of the committee that drafted the Constitution of India. He studied law at Columbia University, and he came from a Hindu caste that had been ill-treated, that had been persecuted for centuries as untouchables. So there is an overlap here of religion and caste. So it became Dalit Buddhist movement, very different to the Buddhist nationalism in Myanmar or in Sri Lanka.
Well, on that rather depressing note, I have to bring this conversation to a close. Navras Aafreedi, thank you very much.